Hi everyone! In this video, I'll show you how to import any data from Excel into a SQL database without using any external tools or programming some scripts. We can just write a formula in Excel or Google Sheets that generates SQL queries. I will also talk about the problems that you should anticipate when writing such a formula. Here's a basic Excel table with some sample data. In the table, you see a list of people with their ID, name, age, city, salary, and some text description. We want to generate an insert query for each row. In a new column, let's write this Excel formula. We start writing a normal SQL query as a formula. Put the equals symbol at the beginning. The static parts of the query must be in string. We enclose them in double quotes. Dynamic values are cell references, and we combine them with strings using the ampersand character. So if you want to insert a dynamic value, you put a double quote at the end of the string part, then an ampersand, then the cell address or function, then an ampersand and double quotes again. As you can see, we don't write the ID column because it's usually autocomplete, and the database will assign the number itself. But if you need a specific number, feel free to specify it. You should also enclose string values such as name and city in single quotes. The formula builds a complete SQL insert statement. After dragging the formula down, this is what we get. Just like that, we have our SQL ready to go. Now copy the generated queries from Excel and paste them into your SQL editor, like MySQL Workbench, PHP MyAdmin, or dbeaver. Run the script and you're done. This method works with any kind of table structure. Just update the formula with your actual column names and cell references. But there are a few pitfalls that can complicate your life, because SQL requires a certain query syntax, and we are inserting unprepared data into the formula that may not have been intended to be inserted into SQL. I use this method quite often, so I hope I have mentioned all possible variations of problems. But if you know more, feel free to post in the comments. Let's look at some examples. Single quotes. If your text contains single quotes, you'll need to escape them. In Excel, you can do this using the substitute function. This replaces one single quote with two single quotes, which is the proper way to escape single quotes in SQL. Note that only one quote will be saved to the database instead of the two specified quotes. Decimals. Here's another thing to watch out for: decimal separators. In some countries, Excel uses commas for decimal numbers instead of dots. But in SQL, decimal numbers must use a dot, not a comma. Otherwise, you will get an error when executing the SQL query. You can avoid this by wrapping the number in single quotes so that it is treated as a string and converted to a decimal when the query is executed. But the problem is that in a string, SQL usually doesn't understand that a comma is a decimal separator, so it will take only the integer before comma and turn the part after the comma into 0. To fix this, you can use the substitute function. Replace commas with dots using this function. Then we will get correct decimals values that SQL can understand, even if they are passed as strings. This ensures your numbers are formatted correctly for SQL. Empty cells. However, the idea of putting a number in quotes is not so bad, because if you can't guarantee that in a large table some row in some table will have a blank instead of a 0, it will cause an error in the SQL query. So just enclose all cells, even numbers, in quotes. Date format. Excel might store dates in different formats. SQL requires a special date format where first comes the year, dash, month with a leading 0, dash, and day with a leading 0. We are lucky to have a special text function to format the date. So convert it explicitly. Spaces. Trailing or leading spaces can break uniqueness or cause unexpected behavior. Use a trim function to avoid this. Formatted tables. In the formulas above, we refer to cells by their addresses, but this can be a problem if the table structure has changed and you are using an old formula. If you are working with Excel, you can use the Smart or Formatted Table feature. This is a separate object on an Excel sheet that adds advanced features. One of the features we need is the ability to refer to a cell in the same row not by cell number, but by column name. This way, if you download the file in a few months' time and copy the old formula, if the structure of the file changes, you will immediately notice it because of an error in the formula. Press Ctrl+T to create a formatted table. Make sure that My Table Has Headers is selected. This is to ensure that Excel automatically recognizes your table's header row and does not add a new one above it. Click OK and retrieve the table. Then replace the cell addresses in the formula with the column names in a special format. You can do this by simply clicking on the cells. After editing the formula in one row, it will apply to the whole column of the table, which is sometimes useful. Update Delete. You can also generate update or delete statements the same way. Batch Insert. If you're inserting many rows, it's often better to use a single batch insert instead of multiple single-row statements. First, generate only the values part of each row without insert part. Then, in a separate cell or at the top, build the full query by combining the header and the concatenated values using join function. This will produce a batch query like this. It's clean, fast, and great for large datasets. Word wrapping quotes. If you apply all of the above tips, you will probably notice that the formula has become very large and hard to read. The good news is that we can format the formula by breaking it into multiple rows. The bad news is that when we copy the resulting query from an Excel cell that contains line breaks, the query is often enclosed in double quotes around the edges, which causes it to be treated as a string and results in an error. The other good news, however, is that we can remove the line breaks in the entire formula and get a nice readable formula, and when copied, a minified version without line breaks. To do this, we wrap the formula in the substitute function, replacing line breaks, whose character we get with the char function with a character code value of 10 with regular spaces. Of course, if you are constantly receiving and saving the same data in a structured format every day, it is more correct to write a script to validate, prepare, and save this data automatically. But I think there are cases where you have a spreadsheet in Excel or Google Sheets that may never be updated again. Or it will be very soon. But you need to quickly import it into the database while transforming some data in the cells. That's it. Now you know how to generate dynamic SQL queries directly from Excel and Google Sheets. This is a powerful technique for quickly importing or manipulating data. If you found this video helpful, you can like it and sign up for more tech tips like this. You can also ask your questions or share your opinion in the comments. Have a good day and see you next time.